It's me, Nina Berenato, and today I'm going to be telling you a few things that I have learned over the years that if I was a jewelry designer starting from scratch, starting my business from day one, these are the things I would do differently. I'm going to cover 5 basic ones, and this video will be really great for anybody who's just starting a jewelry business, anybody who feels like they're kind of struggling, because maybe I will call out some of the things that you may not realize might be holding you back. The first thing I'm going to talk about is when I started my business, I actually named it Psyche Jewelry, which was the name of a Greek goddess. First suggestion I would always suggest is choose a name for your business that people can't pronounce. Psyche is spelled P-S-Y-C-H-E. Everybody was stumbling over it. Nobody knew how to say it, even though it meant a lot to me personally because it was my favorite Greek goddess. Nobody could say it, and so they all ended up calling it Nina's Jewelry, or you had to go onto Nina's trailer, because when I started my business I had it built out of an Airstream. And eventually I just realized it should go under my name. I will always recommend to beginner designers that your name is probably the most powerful thing you have, unless you have a super common name. But if you have a kind of unique name like mine, Nina Berenato, it's always going to be stronger for that. Also, when it comes to search and SEO, having it under your name is always going to be the absolute strongest way for somebody to find you, because it is unique, it is identifiable to you. Whereas if someone looks up Psyche Jewelry, they're going to get Wikipedia page for the Greek goddess. They're going to get other jewelry lines called Psyche Jewelry that I didn't know about at the time. First suggestion, name you can pronounce, and probably just your own name. If you have named your jewelry line something else at this point and you're watching this video and you're like, shoot, I named it the wrong thing. One thing I always want to tell people is rebranding is much easier than you think. When I was transitioning from Psyche to Nina Berenato Jewelry, I was really scared that nobody was going to realize what was going on, that people weren't going to be able to find me, that it was going to be a big deal, and it wasn't. It literally was such a small deal. So if you are having that kind of fear about changing your name, also know it's not a big deal. The next thing I would always suggest is if you're just starting out, the last thing that you should be worrying about is fancy packaging. I know it's very, very tempting when you are starting your business to get some really cute boxes and with, velvet interior and your name like gold foiled on it. And the cost of those boxes might be $2 or $3 a box. I think when you're really starting out, the focus should be on creating jewelry that is affordable and pricing things correctly and being able to have your true cost of goods. What I see a lot of people doing when they create this expensive packaging is not including that in their price, and so they end up losing a lot of money with every single piece of jewelry that they sell. The fancy boxes at the very beginnings of our business are so not important. Up until this year, which is actually 15 years in business now, we have always done craft boxes that we stamp ourselves. It's the absolute lowest cost option, they're really recyclable and sustainable, and that has allowed us to save a lot of money by just creating the most inexpensive packaging. Of course, we make it cute, we have a cute little stamp on it, we make sure it's branded as Nina Berenato Jewelry, but I'm making sure that at the very beginnings of my business, and even through the 15 years, I am spending as little as possible on the packaging and focusing the most of the money that I'm investing into creating a product that's really unique and really high quality. Another thing that I did when I first started my business that I kind of learned from was I was really focused on wholesale. I was really obsessed with getting into all the big fancy stores like Nordstrom and Free People and Anthropologie, and I did get into all those stores, which is great. But when I was selling wholesale, I was selling all of my jewelry for half off the retail price. And I wasn't focused at all on direct to customer, which is where I would be getting the full retail price. I also kind of had this disillusioned idea that when I was selling to these stores, that they would be representing me as a designer, that when they sold the jewelry on Nordstrom website, that it would say Nina Berenato Jewelry somewhere on it, but it doesn't. So one thing about that when you do sell wholesale is you will really, especially at the beginning, it's very hard to do, have to be very on it with the cost and the pricing, because you are selling your product for half price. So you have to have very little overhead, maybe 1 or 2 people working in the business with you. And it's very, very hard to maintain a price that allows you to make money with wholesale at the beginning. So I know it can be very, very tempting to want to get into these big box stores. And if the price is right, then absolutely do it. But I would say when you're first starting, focus on direct to customer over wholesale is really going to help you create a business that's thriving versus one that's really struggling. Another thing, when you are working with these wholesalers, a lot of times they are going to ask you for a big discount. They're going to ask you for 20% off wholesale, 30% off wholesale. It's okay to say no. You know, you kind of feel like I'm so lucky to have even this opportunity to be in this store. So you can be very easily swayed to agree to something that may not be in your best interest. You can negotiate with these stores. There are so many times that I have come back to a store and said, no, I can't offer that discount, and they still place the orders. At the very beginning, make sure you have your own back, make sure you run your numbers before agreeing to anything, and definitely make sure that even if wholesale is a goal of yours, you don't neglect direct to customer. Another thing that I learned as a new designer is when I was creating my jewelry pieces, and I'm just starting out, I was creating everything for myself. I have very small fingers, I have small wrists. So when I was creating all the pieces, I was making them just to fit me. And then I would get to the market and they wouldn't fit anybody else. So I think one thing to always remember when you're starting out is to try to create a full size range or make things that are adjustable if you can. The full size range to me is size 5 to 10 if you are selling mostly to women, and if you are selling to both genders, you're going to do a size 5 all the way to a size 12. So make sure that you are allowing people that do not have the exact same body type or the exact same finger size as you to be able to purchase your product. So you're not designing for you, you're designing for everybody else that's going to buy your jewelry, so always keep that in mind. And then the last thing is always going to be about pricing. Almost every new designer that I talk to that tells me like, oh my God, Nina, I'm struggling so much, I'm having such a hard time, I'm like, let's look at your pricing. And it's almost always wrong. One thing to remember about your pricing is that you're not just covering your expenses today, you're not just covering your costs to create the product, but you also have to put into the price how you are going to plan to grow that next year. So however much you need for the next step in your business to become bigger has to be in your pricing today. I do have a YouTube video that goes a little bit more in depth about pricing. You can kind of find it, it's a few years old, so you'll have to scroll down a little bit. But pricing incorrectly is the #1 thing that will hold you back as a new jewelry designer. If you are somebody that is kind of struggling with that, definitely go back to some of my past videos where I talk about pricing. So those are the 5 things that I would recommend for a new jewelry designer. Learn from my mistakes. And please leave any other questions you have in the comments. Like and subscribe as always, and thank you guys for watching.